In the next hour, you will learn why you're still stuck, even though you're driven. You'll discover who is secretly holding you back and how to cut them loose without guilt. You'll learn how to choose the right people, how to build a mastermind that sharpens you, and how to find a partner who fuels your vision instead of softening your edge. This isn't motivation, this is liberation. Listen to every word. Do you feel as if you were doing everything right, but you still aren't rising? You've read the books, you've made the plans, you've got the dream in your heart, and still you are not where you know you should be. Why? I will tell you plainly, it's not your mindset, it's not your effort, it's not your ambition, it's your environment, it's the people around you, the ones who smile at your goals but secretly shrink at your growth, the ones who speak in soft tones but drip poison into your purpose, the ones you call friends who are unknowingly keeping you small. You see, the greatest threat to your success is not fear. It is familiarity. It's the comfort of the same conversations and the same jokes, the same pace, the same thinking, the same mediocrity, masked as loyalty. And if you do not break away from those who fear your elevation, you will never rise. You may still earn a living, but you will never build a legacy. You may still be liked, but you will never be legendary. I have seen this happen to men more brilliant than you, more ambitious than you, because they refused to leave the room where they were no longer growing. But you are here now, which means some part of you already knows you are shrinking to fit inside a life that no longer fits. And I will tell you this, if you listen, truly listen, this will be the day you walk out of that room for good. This will be the moment the chains fall, not with sound, but with certainty. This speech will not simply motivate you, it will liberate you. You will leave with fire in your blood, clarity in your vision, and the courage to cut ties with anything or anyone who threatens your definite chief aim. Because this isn't about becoming rude, it's about becoming free. Say this now, not as hope, but as command. I am no longer available for smallness. If they do not grow with me, they cannot go with me. Now listen, every word, because your freedom is on the other side of this truth. Most men are not imprisoned by bars of iron, but by voices they've heard since childhood. They sit in mental cages built from second-hand beliefs, hand-me-down thoughts passed along like family heirlooms. Be realistic. Play it safe. Don't aim too high. These phrases sound harmless, even loving, but they are the cement of mediocrity. You hear them enough, you begin to repeat them. And once repeated, they begin to sound like wisdom. But let me tell you something vital. Environment is not passive, it is hypnotic. If you stay long enough in a place that worships comfort, you will begin to kneel to it yourself. This is the tragedy of the average man. He forgets that the world shaping his mind was not chosen, it was inherited. The neighborhood, the language, the mindset, all of it handed to him before he ever took his first breath. And unless he awakens, he dies inside the very room he was born in. Andrew Carnegie left Scotland with nothing but hope and hunger. He could have allowed poverty to become his identity, but instead he surrounded himself with men of vision, not men of pity. He understood this principle. Your origin is not your destiny unless you allow it to be. I have met men with gold in their mind who never rose because they listened too long to those who had no desire to climb. They allowed the whispers of their environment to become the commands of their life. You've changed, they were told. And instead of responding, yes, I have, and I'm proud of it, they shrank back into the cage. Let me give you this warning. The voices of comfort will whisper until you forget the sound of courage. And if you do not interrupt them, they will become your own. So here is your daily check. What am I absorbing? Who is speaking into my mind, not just in person, but through the books, the voices, the tone of the room? Because every man has a mastermind, whether intentional or accidental. And that mastermind is shaping his future. Write this down today. I am not who I was born to be. I am who I allow around me. Now ask, who am I allowing? Growth demands subtraction before it allows addition. Most men believe they must gather more strategies, more knowledge, more effort. But they forget the first law of elevation. You must lighten the load. And often the heaviest weight is not failure, not fear, but people. People who knew you before you dreamed. People who benefit from your delay. This truth is uncomfortable because it forces a choice. Do you value your future more than your familiar? Do you want freedom badly enough to walk away from those who expect your stagnation? Because you cannot hold hands with your past and still build your future. Disconnection is not cruelty, it is clarity. It is the realization that your energy is a limited resource and you must protect it like wealth. Every moment you spend explaining yourself to someone who has no intention of growing is a moment stolen from your mission. I have seen this destroy more destinies than failure ever has. The need to be understood by those who refuse to understand. The man who wants to evolve but still attends every gathering, answers every message, stays in every room, replies to every comment, all to prove he has not changed too much. Let me be clear, if you desire to change your life, you must change who has access to your energy, and that requires disconnection. Henry Ford understood this. He was mocked, ridiculed, even sued. His own peers called him a fool for refusing to build cars the traditional way. But Ford did not argue with them. He disconnected. He did not waste his mind trying to convert small thinkers. He built, and his building silenced the world. There is a difference between cutting people off in bitterness and cutting people loose in purpose. The former is emotional. The latter is strategic. Disconnection is not personal revenge. It is personal responsibility. Growth demands a new ecosystem. You cannot plant the seeds of greatness in soil that refuses to be watered. If the people around you do not challenge your excuses, question your stagnation, or hold you to a higher standard, they are not neutral. They are subtracting. You must recognize this. There is no neutral environment. Every room you enter, every circle you tolerate, every conversation you entertain, either sharpens you or softens you, either pulls you forward or holds you back, either echoes your vision or mutes it. There is a reason most men stay average. It is not lack of desire. It is not lack of talent. It is because they are unwilling to pay the price of disconnection. You cannot transform while protecting the comfort of others. You cannot grow while pretending you have not. You cannot expand while staying in rooms that reward your old self. And if you refuse to disconnect from environments that sabotage your becoming, do not be surprised when your future does not arrive. Some of you reading this know exactly who you must walk away from. You have delayed it, justified it, prayed they would change. But let me tell you this, if a man does not see your value now, your vision will only threaten him later. The price of your future is often the people who refuse to evolve. You must decide, do you want to be liked by everyone, or do you want to become the man you were called to be? Because the man who is liked by everyone usually stands for nothing. He conforms, he bends, he avoids conflict. But the man who rises, the man who leads, he is willing to lose applause to build his path. Let me say this plainly. Your vision is not a community project. It does not require a vote. It does not require permission. It requires protection. If you stay too long in places that no longer fit your future, your subconscious will begin to believe you never really intended to change. Disconnection is not about creating enemies. It is about choosing alignment. And if someone is not aligned with your mission, your growth, your identity, you must limit their access. Not from hatred, but from clarity. Every time you say yes to someone who drains you, you say no to the man you are becoming. This is the daily price of transformation. The willingness to prioritize your vision over validation. To walk alone for a season so you can walk in power for a lifetime. To disappoint others rather than betray yourself. There are conversations you must no longer have. There are threads you must stop replying to. There are group chats you must exit. There are tables you must stop sitting at. Let go of the group chat that chains you to yesterday. Your energy is sacred. Your time is gold. Your mind is the forge of your future. And every voice that speaks into you is a vote toward who you become. Choose wisely, because every man becomes the average of the 5 voices he hears most. Now ask yourself, who are my 5 voices? Do they build or do they distract? Do they stretch or do they sedate? Do they speak truth or convenience? You already know the answer. And if you know the answer, the time for delay is over. You do not have to announce your disconnection. You simply begin to respond differently. You begin to show up in silence. You begin to choose solitude over noise. You begin to act with discipline, not explanation. Let your silence speak of your evolution. Let your progress preach louder than your defense. And let this affirmation be your armor. I do not apologize for prioritizing my vision. Say it again. Not with arrogance, but with resolve. Because a man who apologizes for his vision ends up building someone else's. And you were not placed here to decorate the cage. You were placed here to break it and build what only you were called to build. Begin with disconnection. The right people will find you when the wrong ones no longer have your focus. And until then, walk alone if you must. Because the man who walks alone toward purpose walks with power. And that power is what sets you free. The chains that bind most men are not forged in hate, but in love. Not in conflict, but in comfort. Emotional loyalty is the quiet enemy of progress. It doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't strike with force. It simply whispers, "Don't leave them behind." And so the man stays. He stays tied to friendships that belong to his former self. He stays loyal to family members who see him only as he was, not as he is becoming. He feels guilty for growing. He feels ashamed for wanting more. But let me say this with the authority of experience. They do not need to hate you to hold you back. They only need to keep you small. The childhood friend who jokes when you speak your dream, he may not mean harm, but his presence pulls you into the past. The parent who urges caution when you mention risk, they may love you, but their love is shaped by fear. And fear is not the compass of destiny. If you were born to build, to lead, to create something that never existed before, then understand. The higher you climb, the fewer people will understand the mountain you're scaling. And if you carry their doubts in your pack, you will never reach the summit. Consider this truth. If you had no emotional obligation, no fear of hurting feelings, no guilt, no duty to the past, who would you still allow in your inner circle? This is not a question of love. It is a question of access. You can love someone and still deny them the power to direct your thoughts. You can honor your roots without allowing them to wrap around your ankles. Let us remember Theodore Roosevelt. He was not born in hardship. He came from wealth, from class, from a world that taught boys to be polite, refined, and obedient to social norms. But Roosevelt did not bow to that script. He did not let the expectations of comfort dull his edge. He boxed, he rode, he fought, he led with fire in his belly and clarity in his steps. Had he obeyed the emotional pressure of those around him to act like a gentleman, to remain in his lane, to maintain the status quo, he would have died as a footnote. Instead, he became a force. You must understand, emotional loyalty is not virtue when it leads to your stagnation. It is betrayal, a betrayal of the man you are becoming. And if you do not confront this now, it will haunt every step of your evolution. You will sabotage opportunity to stay relatable. You will downplay success to keep the peace. You will dim your light just enough to keep from making others squint. But I ask you, at what cost? Every man must decide whether he wants approval or legacy, whether he wants to fit in or break through, whether he wants to be liked or become worthy of admiration. And if you find yourself hesitating, let this question guide you back. If I had no emotional obligation, who would I still keep around? Answer it with brutal honesty, then act accordingly. Because your future cannot be built with the bricks of guilt. It must be built with courage, clarity, and command. And when the guilt rises, as it will, speak this aloud: I choose my future over familiarity. Repeat it until the old ties loosen, until your mind breathes freely again, until the voice of your vision is louder than the whisper of your past. Let go. Not in anger, not in judgment, but in certainty. The next version of you deserves a circle that does not flinch when you rise, and if that means walking alone for a season, so be it. Because freedom is found not just in who you include, but in who you release. There exists a force, invisible yet unmistakably real, that separates the average man from the exceptional one. It is not luck. It is not schooling. It is not privilege. It is environment, specifically the mastermind environment. A mastermind is not merely a group. It is a magnetic field of purpose, formed when two or more minds commit themselves to the same higher aim. It is the sharpening ground for greatness. The lone man, however disciplined, will eventually tire. He may have ambition, but without reinforcement, without accountability, without friction, he will dull over time. But place that man in a mastermind, a circle that demands elevation, that breathes progress, that calls out stagnation, and he becomes unrecognizable within a year. This is not theory, this is law. I observed it personally in the life of Andrew Carnegie. Carnegie was not the product of elite education. He was not handed wealth or title. He was born in poverty, in a cramped cottage in Dunfermline, Scotland. But he made one decision that changed everything. He chose his circle deliberately. Carnegie aligned himself with giants. He gathered around him men like Charles M. Schwab, John D. Rockefeller, Thomas Edison, Harvey Firestone, men who had no tolerance for average, men whose presence alone forced expansion. Together, they formed an invisible bond, a brotherhood of fire where no one could remain unchanged. That is the essence of the mastermind, a deliberate alliance born not of comfort, but of purpose. Let us break down its three essential elements. 1. Motive, the engine of the mastermind. No group can rise above the motive that binds it. Every truly great alliance begins with a single unbreakable force: motive. It is the foundation upon which the entire mastermind must rest. Without a shared motive rooted in growth, progress, and the elevation of all involved, no amount of intelligence, no quantity of effort, and no frequency of meetings will yield anything but noise. The wrong motive is like quicksand. It will swallow your time, your spirit, and your destiny before you realize you've even been trapped. I have observed this law in the lives of the greatest men I have studied: Carnegie, Schwab, Ford, Rockefeller, Edison, and I have seen it violated in the lives of the masses, who believed that friendship, sentiment, or shared history alone were enough to build something worthy of eternity. But greatness does not rise on the back of nostalgia. It rises on the back of intention. When I speak of motive, I do not refer to the surface-level reasons people give for gathering. Networking, support, or accountability are merely shells unless animated by a deeper cause. The true mastermind is not built on catching up over coffee. It is forged in the fire of shared purpose. Let us examine why this is so, and why those without motive drift, while those with it rise. Understand this: every man carries within him a frequency, a silent transmission of his truest desire. Some broadcast power, others broadcast pity, some broadcast ambition, others apathy. And when two men spend time together, these frequencies interact. They do not remain neutral. One begins to rise or the other begins to fall. Now picture a group of 5. If even one of them harbors a motive of distraction or doubt or disguised jealousy, it will begin to infect the group's vibration like rot in a barrel of fruit. But if each of the 5 men enters with a motive of elevation, of growth, of creation, of mastery, then the resulting energy is not a simple addition. It is a geometric expansion. The minds begin to feed one another. Ideas spark. Courage compounds. Belief becomes contagious. This, my friend, is the power of harmonious intent, and it is impossible without a motive that is shared, clear, and uncompromising. Most men never experience the true mastermind, not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack opportunity, but because they settle for circles that feel safe rather than circles that demand evolution. They confuse comfort with connection. They gather in rooms where the main topic is sports, complaints, politics, or entertainment, where gossip is the rhythm, where no one asks, "What are you building?" where no one demands the truth. And so they drift, slowly, softly, like a man falling asleep in the snow. They are with people, yes, but they are alone in their purpose. I have seen powerful minds shrivel in the wrong company, men of vision, men of brilliance, men who once dreamed of greatness, who now sit in silence as their so-called friends joke about how nobody ever gets ahead, or how this world just isn't fair. They do not argue. They nod. They smile. They blend in, and every time they do, they bury another piece of their identity. This is what happens when you join a circle without examining the motive. Let me now point your attention to Andrew Carnegie, the man whose life shaped my philosophy. He did not become the richest man in the world by accident, nor did he do so in isolation. He was a man of purpose, yes, but he was also a man of precision when it came to those he surrounded himself with. His personal mastermind included men like Charles M. Schwab, Henry Clay Frick, John D. Rockefeller, and Thomas Edison. He did not choose them for entertainment. He chose them because they were aligned in motive. Their mission was not just to build steel, it was to build the future, to create an industrial revolution that would outlive their names, to forge structures and systems that would shape the destiny of a nation. And because their motive was so clear, so sharp, so purposeful, they tolerated nothing less than excellence. Their meetings were not aimless chats. They were strategy sessions. They were not talking about others. They were talking about ideas, innovation, impact. They were not wasting time. They were buying immortality. Do you understand now the difference between socializing and masterminding? Another grave mistake many make is assuming that proximity equals alignment. It does not. Just because someone shares your goals on paper does not mean they share your motive. A man may say he wants to succeed, but if his underlying motive is comfort, his actions will sabotage your forward motion. He will suggest distractions. He will normalize mediocrity. He will offer rationalizations at the exact moment you require resolve. This is why the motive must be declared. It must be spoken aloud, written, revisited, reviewed. If you do not name the motive, you invite confusion. And confusion is the beginning of collapse. Ask each man in your circle, what are we building here? Why are we here? What do we demand from each other? If no one can answer, then you are not in a mastermind. You are in a masquerade. Let us consider Henry Ford, a man whose methods were mocked, whose innovations were ridiculed, and whose mind was misunderstood. People often speak of how Ford isolated himself. They say he was difficult, that he cut people off. But what they forget is this: Ford did not isolate from people. He disconnected from misaligned motive. He was not interested in gossip. He was not intrigued by critics. He had no time for those who only wanted to socialize, but not build. Ford surrounded himself only with those who shared his aim, his mechanics, his engineers, his visionaries. And yes, sometimes that meant being alone. But he preferred the silence of purpose to the noise of distraction. That is not arrogance, that is discipline. And it is a discipline every man must adopt if he seeks to rise. Even in well-formed groups, danger lurks. It is the danger of motive drift, when a group that began with fire slowly becomes a group that gathers only to remember when they used to burn. They meet, Yes, but now it's for comfort. They talk, yes, but now it's about others. They once pushed each other. Now they merely pacify each other. This is the slow death of the mastermind, and it happens when no one guards the motive. The motive must not only be declared once, it must be defended daily. The group must remind itself, like a creed, like a battle cry, we are here to build. We are here to rise. We are here to stretch each other into something greater. And if even one man loses this, the others must correct it, or the entire alliance will weaken. So I ask you now, what is the motive of the men around you? Do they sharpen you or soften you? Do they challenge you or comfort you? Do they make you feel your potential or help you forget it? And most importantly, if you were not emotionally tied to them, would you still choose them? If the answer is no, then you are not in a mastermind. You are in a trap that looks like friendship, and a trap that sounds like laughter, but a trap nonetheless. Now write this down, and do not simply write it. Speak it daily. I do not apologize for prioritizing my vision. I choose alignment over nostalgia. I will not sacrifice destiny for comfort. Say it when your old friends call to just hang out. Say it when someone mocks your intensity. Say it when you must walk alone for a season to walk with giants in the future, because you are not leaving people behind. You are simply choosing not to stay behind. In the end, everything you build, every inch of progress, every level of influence, every ounce of freedom will either be accelerated or obstructed by the motive of those around you. If you do not demand alignment, you invite entropy. If you do not inspect the foundation, the structure will fall. And if you do not define the motive, someone else will, usually to your detriment. So ask the questions, make the cuts, declare your standard, and never again walk into a room without knowing what it is built to create. Because if it creates nothing, then it is costing you everything. Now let us turn to the flame at the center of every true mastermind, the one thing that separates the dreamers from the builders. Definiteness of purpose. Every man who dares to rise must possess it. Not wishful thinking, not vague ideas, not a loose ambition to be successful, but a definite chief aim, a clearly defined target, a burning obsession, etched in his mind, spoken daily from his mouth, and carved into the actions of his day. This is not a luxury, it is not optional, it is the very oxygen of progress. A man without a definite chief aim is like a ship without a rudder. He may drift with great motion, he may endure many storms, he may even feel exhausted at the end of each day, but he will never reach land. And worst of all, he will convince himself that motion equals advancement. I have seen this error ruin more men than failure ever could. Now here is what most never understand. When you bring two or more definite chief aims together in one alliance, you do not simply add strength, you create a furnace, a place where small thinking is incinerated, where plans collide and refine one another, where each man's intensity feeds the next, and where weakness cannot survive because the temperature of conviction is simply too high. The mastermind at its highest form is not a social gathering. It is a creative collision, a sacred space where every man enters with fire in his gut and clarity in his step. No drifting, no delay, just direction. Let me now show you what this looks like, not in theory, but in the life of a man who lived it. Do you remember what Carnegie said about power? He once declared, "I can summon to me any man with the knowledge I require." To many, this sounds like arrogance, but let me tell you, that was not ego, it was structure. That was the voice of a man who possessed such clarity of purpose, such definiteness in his aim, that others wanted to be part of what he was building. They were drawn to his fire like steel to a magnet. That, my friend, is what happens when a man becomes clear. He becomes magnetic, he becomes a force. People don't just follow him, they organize themselves around him. Why? Because the subconscious mind craves clarity. And in a world full of men who wander, the one who walks with purpose becomes a lighthouse. And do you know how Carnegie found his greatest partners? He didn't recruit them by pleading. He didn't lure them with empty promises. He built his aim so clearly, so boldly, so powerfully that they came to him. They chose him. Because every man of ambition wants to be part of something definite. This is why your goal must be bigger than your comfort, because a weak goal repels strength. If your aim is half-formed, if you say things like, I just want to be rich, or I want to be successful, or I'm figuring it out, then do not be surprised when no man of fire joins your circle. No builder joins a man who is still debating whether he wants to build, but define it, speak it, obsess over it. Say, my aim is to build a company that changes how men think about wealth and discipline. Say, I will generate a 6-figure income through my skill within 12 months. Say, I am building a mission that will outlive my name. Say anything, but say it with definition. Because when your aim is definite, your action becomes deliberate. And when your action is deliberate, your life becomes designed. The alliance of Ford and Edison was no accident. Let me now speak to the example of Henry Ford and Thomas Edison, two of the most powerful minds of their generation. But what bonded them was not mere admiration. It was alignment of purpose. Ford did not simply want to build a car. He wanted to democratize mobility, to give every man the power to travel, to trade, to grow. And Edison, who sought to light every city and electrify every home, understood that vision. So when these men connected, it was not small talk. It was mission talk. Can you imagine the conversations that passed between them? Not, what are you watching lately? But, what will we change next? Not, what did they say about us? But, what will we build that makes them talk? That is what happens when definite minds align. And I urge you now, study your own circle. Are you in conversations of clarity, or are you in conversations of confusion? Here is the danger of indefinite ambition. It sounds noble, it feels exciting, but it deceives the mind. It makes you believe you're building, while you're really just brainstorming. I once met a man who had more notebooks than Carnegie had steel plants. Dozens of ideas, hundreds of schemes, but not a single definite goal. He mistook thinking for doing, and he mistook activity for achievement. He spent his life circling, always near motion, never near completion. Do not let that be you. Choose now. Decide. And when you do, declare it. Write it on your wall. Speak it in the morning. Let it infect your subconscious. And once it's clear in you, it will become clear to the world. Your definite chief aim is your filter. Everything that enters your life must pass through it, every decision and every opportunity. Every man who seeks to join your circle, you must ask, does this align with my chief aim? Does this accelerate the mission? Does this sharpen my direction? And if it does not, you remove it, not with anger, not with resentment, but with clarity. Because a man who holds his future loosely loses it, but the man who holds it with precision commands it. Let me leave you with this. There are thousands of intelligent men who never rise, thousands of skilled men who remain stuck. But the ones who move nations, who build empires, who leave echoes in history, they are not the smartest. They are not the strongest. They are simply the clearest. So I ask you now, what is your definite chief aim? Write it, speak it, declare it with the force of a man who no longer tolerates drifting, because your circle cannot align with you if you are still out of alignment. And your mastermind will never elevate you if you don't know what you're trying to rise into. Now let us speak of the gatekeepers. If you are to form a mastermind worthy of your vision, one that sharpens your thoughts, refines your standards, and multiplies your results, then you must treat the process of selection with the seriousness of war, because a single wrong man can undo the work of 5 right ones. A single weak link in the chain can fracture the entire foundation. And if you're not careful, your inner circle becomes your outer limit. Most men form friendships by default. Proximity, familiarity, shared history. But those are not qualifications for your mastermind. Not now, not anymore. You are not building a social club. You are building a council of kings. And that council must be chosen, not inherited, not stumbled upon, chosen. Let me tell you this plainly. If there is even one man in your circle who excuses laziness, who mocks ambition, who says things like, take it easy or don't overdo it, you are harboring a saboteur. You are housing the very energy that will keep you from greatness. Because mediocrity is more contagious than excellence, and comfort never comes alone. It brings with it delay, doubt, and disguise. It wears the mask of reason. It whispers in soft tones. But its goal is always the same, to dissolve your edge, and the man who lets it speak will forget how to hear truth. So who must you invite into your mastermind? Men of steel, men of structure, men who have slain their own comfort so they can sharpen yours. You are not looking for cheerleaders, you are looking for blacksmiths, the kind of men who are not impressed by your potential because they know what it takes to fulfill it. Men who do not flatter, but forge. Men who will say to your face, and that's not good enough. You're drifting. You said you wanted to build, so why are you hiding again? That voice, though it may sting, will save your destiny. Do not seek the voices that soothe you in weakness. Seek the voices that summon you in fire, because every man will drift at times. Every man will second guess. Every man will feel the gravity of the old self pulling him back into safety. But the man who surrounds himself with fire breathers will be pulled forward instead, not with force, but with expectation. The expectation that you are better than your delay, that you are too gifted to remain average, that you were born for more and must act like it. I have seen it with my own eyes. I have walked among giants. Carnegie, Ford, Edison, Schwab, each of them knew this principle intuitively. You do not build an empire surrounded by men who fear bricks. You do not conquer industries with companions who whisper, "It's too much." When Andrew Carnegie selected Charles Schwab, he did not choose him for politeness. He chose him for performance. Schwab had fire. He had initiative. He did not wait to be told what to do. He anticipated, he acted, he produced. And Carnegie saw in him not just ability, but alignment. That is what you must seek. Not just ability, but alignment, not just ambition, but standards. Not just a man who talks about growth, but one who demands it from himself and from you. These are the men who belong in your mastermind. And here is a test you can apply immediately. Ask yourself this question: what conversations am I having most often with my circle? If they are not about building, they are about drifting. If they are not about future, they are about distraction. If your circle debates mediocrity, delays excellence, and celebrates stagnation masked as balance, then you are not in a mastermind. You are in a holding cell. You cannot rise with those who are content to remain grounded, because growth demands confrontation. Evolution demands discomfort. And if your allies are afraid to offend you, then they are not your allies. They are your audience. And you, my friend, do not need an audience. You need generals. Let me speak directly to you now. You must become ruthless in this pursuit. Yes, ruthless. That does not mean cruel. That does not mean arrogant. It means clear, because when your destiny is on the line, there is no room for apology. You are not here to carry the emotional weight of men who refuse to carry their own dreams. You are not here to make everyone feel comfortable while you silently shrink. You are here to become, to build, to elevate, and to bring others with you only if they're willing to rise. And if they are not, you leave them behind with honor. But you do leave, because you are not called to remain loyal to your past. You are called to obey your vision. Now we arrive at one of the most delicate and yet most powerful forms of the mastermind, the relationship between man and woman. I must speak to you with directness and without apology, for this truth has built empires and destroyed them alike. The union between a man and a woman is not merely a romance, it is a fusion of energies. It is a daily alliance of influence, repetition, and belief. And whether you realize it or not, this alliance is shaping the man you are becoming every single day. You may not call it a mastermind, You may call it love, marriage, partnership, companionship, but call it what you will. If you are sharing your thoughts, your spirit, and your space with a woman, then you are entering into one of the most consistent and influential forms of subconscious programming that exists. Every morning when you rise, her voice is there. Every decision you make, her opinion, whether spoken or not, hangs in the air like incense. Every doubt you carry, every fire you feed, she is either pouring water on it or fanning the flame. A woman can build or break a man, not by force, but by frequency, not by domination, but by repetition. If the woman you share your life with constantly speaks of caution, of fear, of what is too much or too bold, then you will find your thoughts weakening without even noticing. You will become the man she fears you might become, not because she wills it, but because her voice has become the echo in your subconscious. You will shrink not from her criticism, but from her energy. And over time, your boldness will rot from within. Your desire to lead, to rise, to dominate your own domain, it will decay. And you will call it balance. You will say, I have a family now, or I have responsibilities. But the truth will be far more dangerous. You became soft in the name of peace. But the opposite is also true. A woman with a warrior's belief can make a man unstoppable. If her voice reminds you of who you truly are, if she does not tremble when you speak of vision, if she refuses to let you settle into your comfort, even when the world tells you you've done enough, then she becomes the most potent form of the mastermind. Her belief enters your bloodstream. Her fire becomes your own. She becomes not just your wife, your lover, or your partner. She becomes part of your counsel, part of your purpose, and her presence elevates every step you take. Let me speak plainly now, as I did in the days of steel and sweat. You must choose your partner with the same level of deliberateness as you choose your goals. You must not marry comfort. You must not settle for beauty without belief. You must not confuse ease with alignment, because ease will not forge you. Beauty will not hold you together when your vision shakes. But belief, shared, fierce, unquestionable belief, will keep you climbing even when you wish to stop. Charles M. Schwab did not rise because he worked alone. Behind the steel, behind the sweat, behind the commanding voice in the boardroom, was the soft but firm presence of his wife. History does not speak of her often, but I assure you she spoke of history to him. She reminded him daily of his standard. She refused to let him collapse into fatigue. She stood beside him not as a shadow, but as a mirror. And she did not merely reflect who he was, she reflected who he was becoming. This is what the right woman does. She holds up the mirror, not of your past, but of your potential. She does not merely comfort your pain. She calls you to your power. She reminds you, when the world forgets, that you were born not for comfort, but for conquest. And if she is truly part of your mastermind, then she will demand your growth, not just accept it. Now ask yourself with ruthless honesty, who has the most consistent access to your thoughts? Who do you confide in when you doubt yourself? Who do you turn to when the pressure grows heavy? And what do they do with that privilege? Do they challenge your low moments, or do they make them feel justified? Do they shake you back to your standards, or do they say, it's okay, just rest, don't push so hard? That voice may come from love, but it can still lead you to ruin. Many a man has died spiritually with a full belly and a soft voice beside him, whispering that he's done enough. And many others have risen from the ashes of failure because one woman refused to let them stay down. You must inspect your circle, but you must inspect your partner most of all, for she is not merely a presence in your day. She is a frequency in your mind. And that frequency, be it fear or faith, will compound more rapidly than you can calculate. Let me tell you something most men won't admit. We all desire to be believed in. Not just admired, not just respected, but believed in. And the belief of a woman cuts deeper than that of any friend, mentor, or audience. Because it speaks not only to our power, but to our identity. When a woman says, "I see it in you," something awakens. And when she says, "I don't think this is smart," something shrinks, not because she is stronger, but because her voice is closer. This is why the wrong relationship does more damage than any enemy. The wrong woman does not have to criticize you to destroy your future. She only needs to doubt your aim, question your clarity, or praise your safety. And without realizing it, you will begin to obey the comfort of her expectations rather than the command of your calling. So I ask you again, who has a seat at your round table? Who do you allow to speak into your decision-making? Who has the power to soften your urgency, delay your next step, or validate your avoidance? And does that person build your future or reinforce your past? Do not confuse shared history with shared destiny. Just because you've spent years with someone does not mean they are qualified to walk with you into your next decade. And if the person you are with refuses to grow with you, then one of you must choose: either they rise or you remain. This is not cruelty. This is clarity. You are not betraying someone by requiring evolution. You are not wrong for needing your inner circle to reflect your future, not your former self. And you are not asking for too much by demanding that your closest voice be one of belief. Too many men try to carry the weight of someone else's comfort while climbing the mountain of their own potential. But that is not leadership. That is martyrdom. And the man who becomes a martyr in his own relationship eventually becomes resentful. He stops dreaming. He stops moving. He stops becoming. And I will tell you this, the woman who truly loves you will not allow it. She will call it out. She will say, "This is not the man I married. This is not the man I know you are." She will demand your fire, not for her benefit, but because she knows you were born to burn bright. And the woman who fears your fire, she will ask you to dim it. She will ask you to be smaller, to slow down, to stay safe. And if you obey, then you are not in a relationship. You are in a prison. A mastermind must sharpen, it must challenge, it must elevate. And if your relationship does not do this, then it is not a mastermind. It is a comfort zone with kisses. Let this be your new standard. I will not build my future beside someone who fears it. I will not share my vision with someone who doubts the fire I carry. I will not spend my one life explaining why I want more to someone who celebrates mediocrity. And I will not water down my mission to make someone else feel safe. The right woman will not need you to play small. She will hand you the sword. She will say, "Go conquer." And she will remind you every time you stagger, you are not done yet. If you have that woman, honor her. If you don't, build yourself until you attract her. And if you are with someone who no longer aligns with your vision, then speak the truth. Because silence is slow suicide. And silence is how most men die. Not from failure, but from tolerating a voice that does not reflect their future. So now I give you this daily affirmation. Speak it each morning. Speak it when doubt arises. Speak it until it replaces the old voice of fear. The voice closest to me reflects the man I am becoming. My partner is a mirror of my mission. I will not call it love if it kills my purpose. Let this echo in your spirit, because your future is listening, and so is she. Choose well. The truth is brutal, but it is freeing. You are either in a circle or with a woman that sharpens or softens. There is no neutrality. Environment is active. It either ignites you or numbs you. It either fuels your rise or quietly justifies your stagnation. This is why most men fail. They have a grand vision, perhaps even a worthy aim, but they try to achieve it in the wrong room. They attend meetings with doubters. They dine with the distracted. They live with voices that celebrate mediocrity. You cannot build greatness in the house of delay. You cannot speak power while surrounded by smallness. You cannot declare your future while still seeking permission from the past. When was the last time someone looked you square in the eye and said, "You're drifting"? Not with malice, not with jealousy, but with conviction. When was the last time someone demanded more of you, not because they were better than you, but because they believed in what you could become? You see, every man, no matter how driven, how talented, how ambitious, needs another man to challenge him. One who sees through the performance, one who cuts through the justifications, the polished words, the excuses dressed up as strategy, one who calls out the delay before it becomes decay. Most men avoid this. They build comfort circles, safe havens, groups that nod in agreement, who applaud even mediocrity, who offer praise when what is truly needed is pressure. That kind of circle is not a mastermind. It is a mausoleum. It houses the death of greatness, and that is not where you belong. Let me tell you what separates men who rise from men who repeat it. It is not talent. It is not timing. It is not education or wealth or birthright. It is this: a man who allows himself to be held accountable relentlessly by a circle that refuses to let him settle. If you are not being challenged, you are being weakened. And if no one is confronting your laziness, your delay, your self-deception, then make no mistake, you are slipping, slowly, silently, but surely. Because the truth is this: every man lies to himself. The only question is, do you have someone who sees through it? Let us remember Henry Ford. He was not loved by the press. He was sued. He was mocked by the intellectual elite. They said he was not a real engineer, not a real businessman, not a proper gentleman. But Ford did not cower. He built. He created systems that reshaped industry. He redefined what was possible. But here's what they don't write in the textbooks. Ford had men around him who would not allow him to retreat into comfort. He was not surrounded by flatterers. He was surrounded by fire. Men like Thomas Edison, who once said that Ford's mind was incandescent. But that admiration came with demand. They did not let each other off the hook. They confronted weakness. They reinforced vision. They burned away delay. That is the unseen force behind every legendary figure, a circle that demands evolution. Theodore Roosevelt knew this well. He lived by principle, yes, but he surrounded himself with men who held him to those principles. He chose to be tested, not pampered. He welcomed feedback like a warrior welcomes battle, because he knew that without it, he would soften. Ask yourself right now, with ruthless honesty, who in your life demands more of you than you demand of yourself? Who tells you when you're hiding behind productivity? Who reminds you that being busy is not the same as being effective? Who says, I know you're capable of more, and I will not applaud until you give it? If the answer is no one, you are in danger, and you are not alone. Most men surround themselves with silence. They tolerate nods. They drown in agreement. Because agreement is easy, but it never produces power. Do not confuse support with sharpening. Yes, you need love, you need encouragement, but more than that, you need pressure. You need someone who refuses to let you repeat last year's behavior while claiming you want a new life. That is the gift of the mastermind. It brings with it not just camaraderie, but clarity. It will not let you hide. It will not let you drift. A true mastermind holds up a mirror and says, this is who you are, but it is not who you are meant to be. I will say it plainly. Most men do not need more motivation. They need confrontation. They need another man to say, you've been talking about that idea for 2 years. Where is it? You said you'd change your routine. Why haven't you? You promised yourself you'd wake up early, train daily, speak boldly. So why are you still negotiating with your weakness? That is the role of the challenger. And if you are wise, you will thank him, not resent him. Because that voice, though it may sting, is the voice that saves your destiny. Now, what must you do? You must begin the audit. Start today. Do not delay. Write down the names of the 5 people you spend the most time with, mentally, physically, emotionally. Then ask, do they challenge me? Do they raise my standards? Do they call out my delay? Do they mirror my highest self or my past self? If even one name fails that test, It is time to restructure your circle, because your circle is not passive. It is shaping you every day. Now, what if you don't have that challenger yet? What if no one in your life fits that description? Then you must build the bridge to one. And it starts with environment. Begin with books. Begin with speeches. Begin with voices that will not let you remain the same. Let men like Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, Theodore Roosevelt, and Charles Schwab mentor you from the grave. Read their words aloud. Reflect their rhythms. Let their demands become your daily expectations. This is not fantasy. This is installation. You are reprogramming the voice in your mind, and that voice in time will attract others who speak at the same frequency. And once you are ready, once your standards are clear, you must begin building your circle intentionally. Do not wait for the right people to find you. Create structure. Establish weekly calls, share written goals, track progress with one another. Do not allow vague friendship to replace precise accountability. Every member of your mastermind should know what you're building, why it matters, what you will no longer tolerate, and then hold each other to it daily. This is not about emotion, it is about execution. Because listen to me now, you will not drift into greatness. You will not accidentally fulfill your purpose, and you will not become powerful while surrounded by those who accept your powerlessness. You must design your environment to reflect your future, and that includes your circle. Your inner council must become sacred. You do not allow any man to speak into your life unless his presence demands your elevation, not because of status, but because of standards. Let me offer you this affirmation, and do not recite it passively. Stand up. Breathe deeply. Look into your own eyes if you must. Say it with the force of someone declaring their future. My circle is a mirror of my standards. I choose to be sharpened, not softened. Again, my circle is a mirror of my standards. I choose to be sharpened, not softened. Say it until it feels like law. Say it until weakness feels foreign. Say it until you no longer tolerate voices that praise your delay. Now, before we move forward, let us seal this with a decision. Not someday, not when life feels convenient. Now, decide. I will no longer hide behind approval. I will no longer tolerate circles that flatter my comfort. I will seek the voice that challenges me to rise. If you say this and you mean it, then you have already begun. Because the man who has the courage to be called out is the man who is ready to become legendary. Choose well. And never again settle for a circle that lets you stay the same. Now that you have heard the truth, you can no longer pretend not to know it. You can no longer walk into rooms that weaken you and claim ignorance. You can no longer keep company with voices that dull your edge and say it's just friendship. You are not confused. You are simply being called higher. And that calling demands an act of courage most men will never make. To burn the bridge behind you, not out of hate, but out of honor. Because if you do not burn the bridge to who you used to be, you will keep walking back to him. You will visit that version of yourself, the one who explained, who waited, who apologized, and you will entertain him like an old guest, and slowly you will become him again. That is the tragedy of the man who delays. He doesn't return to comfort. He returns to the cage. So I say to you now, clearly, finally, and with full conviction, leave the room, not quietly. Not politely. Leave with clarity in your eyes and fire in your spine. Say nothing if you must, but let your discipline speak volumes. Let your evolution be the explanation. Let your results preach in a language the doubters can no longer understand. And when the voices rise, when did you change? Why are you distant? You think you're better than us now? Let your silence say this. I no longer shrink to be understood. I am not better than you. I am better than who I used to be. And that alone is reason enough to leave. Because now you know what you must do. Now you've seen it clearly. The wrong circle will drown your clarity, dilute your mission, and decorate your cage. But the right circle, it will sharpen you into steel. It will summon you into power. It will demand that you rise into the man you were placed here to become. Not someday now, and if you don't yet have that circle, then become him alone. Because the man who sharpens himself in silence will never stay alone for long. He becomes a signal, a fire in the dark, and others, warriors, visionaries, builders, they will find him. Because men of purpose do not wander forever, they are pulled to each other by fire, by frequency, by fate. So this is your final word. This is the moment when the chains don't just fall, they disintegrate, not with drama, but with decision. You are no longer a man who explains his greatness to the unwilling. You are no longer a man who waits to be understood. You are no longer a man who begs his past to cheer for his future. You are a man who walks forward without apology, who rises without permission, who builds even when he must build alone. And in time, those who belong will find you, but the ones who don't, they will be the shadows behind you, not the chains upon you. So say it now one final time, and say it loud enough that the small version of you hears it and dies tonight. If they do not grow with me, they cannot go with me. And so it is. Now walk and do not look back.